Hi there, Joka here, and in this video I'm going to share a few cards that I've created with the new Susan's Holiday Flora collection by Spellbinders. This is the first time I'm using proper tools to create more realistic looking flowers. So this toolkit is called Susan's Garden Ultimate Toolkit, I think. As always, I'm going to link everything down below, so if I mess up names, because that's highly likely, you will see the correct names down there. So there are different tools here that you can put in this tool-in-one. This bowl tool, and there's some loop tool, and this one for the leaf. I have no idea what they are called, but that's what I'm calling them. There are different sized bowl tools, and those holes that you could, or indentations that you could see there, you can basically select the length that you can use. And this toolkit also has two of my favorite tools that I already have, the tweezers and the reverse tweezers. These I'm using all the time, so I'm glad to have a spare set. And here is this specialty cardstock that Susan chose for her flowers and greenery and stuff like that. And it has a really cool texture. I don't know if the camera is gonna pick it up, but it's and also it feels more like faux leather to me, not like cardstock. It's really nice, and I am going to be using 4 die sets. I'm really bad with names, so I'm not even gonna attempt to try. This one has, you can create a pine cone with this, and some needles, pine needles. So then this one is the Amaryllis. I was super excited about this one. I really thought it looked really special. I'm actually creating the card with the Amaryllis at the very last bit of the video. Then this is the Poinsettia, and by the way, there are videos that Susan created on the Spellbinders channel where she shows how to color everything, how to put everything together. So basically what I did, I watched her videos and then I created my own. I followed her instructions as much as I remembered, just to be sure that they look all right. I know I made a bunch of mistakes. I realized that later. But anyway, I'm still going to show you how I colored everything. I'm not a colorer, and so this is not gonna be anything super special or professional. And these are my son's COPIC markers, so this is probably the second time I'm using them. And so he doesn't really have a lot of colors, so I just went with whatever seemed best. And I created 2 different colors for the green poinsettia leaves. One is like a lighter green, the other one is this darker. And yeah, with the lighter one, I want to create pink, well, I would say petals, but I believe that these are leaves. So, and with the darker green, I'm gonna pair some reddish colors. So I will try to put the COPIC marker numbers in the description box below as well, just in case you want to know what colors these are. I really didn't have much yeah, I didn't have many options from, I mean, my son doesn't really use pink, you know, so he doesn't have a lot of girlish colors. So I am not really doing anything special there, just adding the darkest color in the middle and then blending it out towards the top. And I also added a little bit of the darker pink at the well, peaks, or I don't know how to call those, because I don't know, I didn't quite like that they were lighter there. I don't know how to explain that. It just didn't look, well, it still doesn't look very realistic, you know, the coloring. But yeah, I think it just didn't fit the poinsettia that much. Now I am going to form all the leaves, and as you can see, I also drew in some of the veins. Obviously, poinsettias have a lot more than this, but I only added a few. I think it still looks good. On the darker leaves, I actually added some dark reddish color. Here I forgot, so I will add it later. And the camera will not pick it up, but maybe in the detail photos at the end, you will see better. In person, so this is that color. In person, that really adds so much to it. I really love that effect. And I don't know, I think you can already tell here on the camera that this cardstock is so special. It really, I don't know, it looks like, I don't know, it kind of looks realistic to me. So it's nothing like cardstock. It's wonderful. I really loved working with it. Now, what I also wanted to mention, there's so many things I want to mention. I will have time because this is a super long video. I apologize. It's 35 minutes, but I don't know, there was just nothing that I wanted to edit out. Even though you don't see me do anything very special, and Susan's videos have all this in more detail and slower. I just felt like maybe it helps someone. I didn't want to edit these out. So maybe take a cup of coffee or tea and yeah, take time because this is long. So the poinsettia set has some single leaves as well. If you want to add a bit more, so you want to create a fuller flower, and I did that for the pink, but I did not add anything to the red flowers that I will create later. I'm actually showing the coloring on every shape that I did at least once, just so that you see how I colored them. Again, these are very basic, and I did this, I made these cards over the course of probably a week. I wasn't feeling very well, so I just did a few, like half an hour here and there. So I did not remember the colors that I used on the first pink and the first green flowers. So I actually used a bit different colors here. I think I used 3 greens here on these single leaves, whereas I only used 2 on the first one, and I only saw this in the video. So yeah, so they are not exactly the same. So for red, I had these, they are a bit orangey kind of reds, but this is all I had, and I actually really like those colors, so it's fine. And I just created a few extra leaves, which I'm not gonna end up using, but I prefer to work like this, like you know, every step oh God, I'm so tired that I don't know how to describe what I mean. Like a, you know, like on a factory line that you create one step and then move on to the next. So I'm just basically I'm coloring everything here without knowing what I will need. And usually if I need more, then I just add that later. But I prefer to do one task in one go and then coming back to it. Normally I would have done the Amaryllis parts as well at this point, but when I started creating these cards, that video was not ready yet, so I did not know how to assemble that flower. It was actually easier than I thought, to be honest. Some of this really intimidated me because I never really color and I never made flowers like this. So I was quite worried, but I think for first time flowers, they look okay. Here, these pine needles, for some reason, I used two kinds of greens, although I should have used brown since, you know, the branch would be brown, not green, but details like that don't bother me that much. So yeah, I colored a bunch of these, and as you can see, I'm coloring both sides because, you know, if you form those, then you can see both sides. Now in this case, I'm using two brown colors, and I'm also coloring the back. I will forget to color the back side of one of them, I think. But in this case, it doesn't matter because I will glue these down flat, so they will, you know, they will anyway not be visible. But I wanted to create a bit of a variety, so that's why I used two different browns there. And then there is these other leaves in the same set of dies. And again, I'm just adding the darker color on the branch itself and just the middle of the leaves, and then I blend it out with a lighter green just to add some variation, and so that it's a bit more realistic, you know. And obviously you can use cardstock instead of coloring. I did not try, so I can't say how those work with these tools. If you can shape them as well as this specialty cardstock, I don't know. I have no advice on that one, but you can certainly try. I had plans to try. I even wanted to do pattern papers, but like I said, I just wasn't doing well, so I skipped all that. Now I'm using some Nuvo drops. It's called Ruby Slippers. It's like a glitter, a red glitter Nuvo drop, and I'm adding a few drops on these that I forget the name of. And I'm setting these aside to dry, and then I also add the same drops on the back side. I'm literally doing everything the way Susan did in her videos, so but they worked out fine, I think. So these are for the poinsettia, by the way, and that's the dimension that it creates. So here's my red poinsettia, and I'm cupping, is that what it's called? That center part, and I'm assembling the flowers. I wish that you could see the real colors. This light that I have, it just changes all the colors, so it's kind of dark as well. But especially the green, these dark green leaves, I really loved in person. They really look quite realistic. Okay, so I'm assembling this first poinsettia, and I'm actually going to create 2 of this red one and then just 1 of the pink one, and I will use 2 red ones for one card and 1 pink for another card. And this glue actually works really well. I was afraid that with all this dimension I'm gonna have issues. Now moving on to the next bunch of leaves here, again adding veins and bending the cardstock a little bit before using the bowl tool on them. And this piece of white, I don't know, it's kind of like not chipboard because it's harder, but this is the leaf pad basically. This is where you add your veins and things like that. So I am cutting all these needles in half because they are not like needles, right? If you don't do that. So to be a bit more realistic, I'm kind of trying to fluff them up, or just so that the needles are more visible. Yeah, and here's the bowl tool. When I first used the bowl tool, I used to bake and create some decorations from sugar. That's when I used bowl tool last. I do have those tools somewhere in the basement, but yeah, I wasn't gonna find them. So when I first used the bowl tool on that paper, I was just so amazed. The way you get that shape, it's amazing. Okay, so moving on to the pine cone. This one I was so worried about because it's so many small pieces, and I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna I'm not capable of doing this. But it turned out okay. It's not as nice as Susan's, but then she has experience and practice, so I think it's still okay. Normally you would only need to die cut these twice, but I think I just glued them too close to each other, so I needed to die cut an extra set. And I just used 2 browns, which again, honestly, the way I glued them together, I didn't need, because you cannot see the end, the dark brown ends. So I'm cupping those little scales, and then these parts here that will form the pine cone. Look, that just doesn't look like paper, does it? So cool. And you could build your pine cone on your card directly, but I don't like to do that because I always like to play around with arrangements, and I cannot decide right away where I want it. So I decided to create the pine cone on a piece of cardstock, and then I fussy cut around it. So it worked out fine. I was a bit worried about it because I was only gluing the very edges of that shape, but everything worked out fine. And then I am gluing down the larger scales at the bottom, and then moving up at the top. I'm going to use the smaller ones, and really I'm just adding a little bit of glue at the very tip of those scales where you see the darker brown. And there's no rhyme or reason, I'm just adding them to cover that whole shape there, for which, by the way, I first glued down the small die cut, then the large die cut, then another small one on top of that to build that dimension. But all of this you should watch in Susan's video, because she's explaining it really well, and she's doing it real time, so it's not like my video that's completely sped up and still super long. Okay, so close to the end here. I wasn't quite sure what to do with the ends there, but I will hide that anyway, so it won't be visible. I think that looks quite all right. And then there's a last step to do to make those scales look a bit more realistic, is that you take your tweezers, and I actually tried both my tweezers and the reverse tweezers, but I think this one worked better for me. That you curl up the ends of those scales a little bit, so you curl them back towards you, and that just gives it a bit even more dimension than it has now. And once I've done that, this one is ready, although later on I'm gonna decide to do something else with it as well. See, I think that for a first time it's not too bad. Yeah, so this is actually my own stamp set, and it's from last year, a Christmas sentiment set, which I decided to use because all these flowers and greenery and everything is very large. So I decided to go with a larger size card than I normally do. This is 5x7. So I thought these large sentiments would look great. So I'm embossing Peace on Earth onto one. I was planning to emboss this and then add some pattern paper on top of it, with a die cut circle in the middle. However, that would have been a bit more tricky. And what you see me do here, I'm trying to center that pattern, but it's not working really well. So I did my best. It's not perfect, but yeah, the pattern doesn't repeat the way I thought it would. Anyway, I'm cutting this down or trimming it down a bit smaller than 5x7. And in the end, I decided that I would die cut the sentiment out of the white cardstock and just place over the pattern paper. It's a lot easier than what I was originally planning. So yeah, I'm creating the card base here, and this is my first card, and for this one I wanted to use the red poinsettias and create a wreath around the sentiment. And for this I'm actually using parts of other die sets from the collection. Again, I don't remember what the name of this is, but I actually checked it before I started recording the voiceover, but I don't know. I don't know if it's my memory or I just, when when you have to talk, you just forget these things. Anyway, so I'm creating this wreath around my sentiment. It's not perfect because there's more space at the top than here at the bottom left, but I think it's okay if it's covered up just a little bit there. The E, I think you can still read that. Okay, and now I'm trying to figure out where to put those flowers and the pine needles, and that's about it that I'm gonna add to this card. I actually cut apart some of that greenery because somehow that V shape wasn't the perfect V for this design for me. So yeah, I just cut it apart, and now I'm gluing everything down. And when I'm gluing just one thing down, I always put the flower on top just to make sure that it's in the right position. I'm sure you can't really go wrong here, but I don't know. That's my process, I guess. Okay, and once I glued everything down, then this card is pretty much done. I did not add any enamel dots like I normally do. Moving on to the next card, on which I'm going to be using the pink poinsettia and also the Pinecone. And this is going to be a very simple card. I'm just creating a pattern paper panel. Houndstooth is one of my favorite patterns, and I think it's perfect for Christmas. And I have this pink one. It is a pattern that's impossible to center because the top and the bottom are not the same in those little, houndstooth. But I think it's acceptable the way it turned out. So I'm adding that to a white card base in a slightly smaller size. And now I'm trying to figure out the arrangement. I just wanted to create one cluster here with a bunch of leaves, a bunch of pine needles, pine cone, and I don't remember why I decided to add some white acrylic paint here. I don't know, I guess either I wanted to do something different or I just felt like some snow or frost or something would look nice. Honestly, I don't remember. But I do this with all the greenery, so I'm adding some paint to all the leaves and even some of the green leaves of the poinsettia, or at least just the tip of them. I added some paint to. I think maybe I just wanted to do something different from the first card. I really don't remember, but I think I like the way that looks. Okay, so like I said, I wanted to mention a bunch of things. Another thing I wanted to mention is this was a challenge for me, not only because I've never created anything like this, any realistic looking flowers, but because I normally work with pattern papers or cardstock, and those don't have the same colors as COPIC markers. Let's just say that. And so it's not in my wheelhouse, and I still wanted to use some pattern papers, but it's kind of the cards themselves are on the simple side. I think these kind of flowers might fit a different style better than mine, but I still wanted to try if I can mix the two. You judge if that worked or not. For me, I don't know. I'm really on the fence with it. I do love the flowers, but I'm not certain that the card bases were the right decision. Anyway, I had to try. So I added a few extra leaves there on the left of that poinsettia, by the way, just because I felt like there was an empty space. And then the last thing I did, I just added some red foiled sentiment there. Okay, and now onto the Amaryllis. And as afraid I was, this was actually not too difficult to create. I did mess up a few things here, but I think it's acceptable. As you can see, I don't know what this brown material is called that I'm coloring on. It's part of that ultimate toolkit, and I'm kind of dipping my leaves into the paint that is on the mat, because that gives these spots on the leaves that I think that look kind of cool and maybe even more authentic, not like a paper thing. So, okay, and the idea here, I Googled Amaryllis because I mostly know the red ones, but I wanted to see what kind of variations there are. And I found this super cool one I've never seen before. It's white, but it has a red edge. But really, there's just a line around the edges that's red. So that's what I'm going for here. And it's kind of green in the middle. So I wanted to recreate that. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I will mess it up on the back, but I didn't mess it up on the other two sets of flowers, because what you have to do is this is what I meant. So you have to die cut 3 of the larger petals and 3 of the smaller petals to create your 3 flowers that are typical for the Amaryllis. You could create or die cut more if you wanted to have double flowers, but this particular one actually looked like this. And I'm kind of curling those petals back. I'm doing everything I saw it in Susan's video, really, because I just don't know flowers this much in so much detail, you know. So I just followed her instructions, and I'm sorry that my hair gets in the way all the time, but I had to be over the project to see it. So this is one flower. I think it's really cute, and you have to create 3 of those. Now this, I have no idea why I did this. So I created 2 of these. I honestly, I only needed 1 because the second layer, obviously, you cannot see. So I don't know why I colored 2 of them. I could have just used white cardstock or green cardstock or whatever. So I went with this pattern paper for the background, just because you know that I love pattern paper. It might not have been the best choice. The green COPIC markers that I used are a bit more vivid, you know, so they might not fit that watercolor design in the back, but okay, too late to reconsider. So I'm now building the flower directly on the background, and as you can see, it's super simple. Once you have the flower, honestly, there's nothing I did on the card. I just assembled the flower and added a red foiled sentiment, and that's it. So these cards are super dimensional. I have no idea. I probably will not send them to my family, but give them in person when I get a chance, because or maybe in a box I can send it. I don't know. It's super dimensional, so they will not go into envelopes for sure. Okay, so I am really sorry that this was such a long video, but I hope that I could help you in one way or another to not feel intimidated by these dies, because they are really fun to work with, and this cardstock is just amazing. So if you can try, I suggest you do, because you will be amazed with the results. It's just, yeah, they are super special. Thank you very much for stopping by today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.